I want you to imagine this for a moment. Your parent has finally decided they're ready to move into a beautiful, continuing care retirement community, a place where they'll have support, community, and peace of mind for the rest of their life. You've done the tours, you've seen the sparkling dining rooms and vibrant activities, and you can already picture them thriving there. But then you get that number, the buy in or that hefty upfront payment feels like a brick wall. Your heart sinks. They can't move in until their home sells. But selling the home means they have to wait possibly months while living in limbo. In the meantime, they miss out on the very lifestyle and care they're excited for. I've seen the situation over and over again with Bay Area families, and it's heartbreaking because the timing, not the desire, becomes the barrier. But it doesn't have to be that way. Welcome to another episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. I'm Dale Corpus, a senior transition specialist and real estate expert based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and also a proud member of the sandwich generation, balancing care for my own aging parents while raising my own family. I created this show to make senior living conversations easier and to give families the insights they need to make confident, informed choices. Today's episode is going to be a game changer for families in that exact situation I just described. My guest, Todd Galde, is a seasoned mortgage and real estate professional, the creator of the Buy Before Sell program, and someone who has worked closely with many CCRCs across the country. His approach allows seniors to move first, get settled, and then sell the home, removing the stress, the time crunch, and the fear of missing out on their dream community. And beyond solving that financial timing issue, this approach gives families the space to downsize more thoughtfully, prepare the home for market without panic, and often end up with a better sales outcome. Whether you're an adult child helping a parent, a senior planning your own move, or a professional in the senior living industry, this episode will open your eyes to a solution that could make all the difference. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we're back, everybody. Todd, I've known you for so long, it's just kind of interesting. We met through a common acquaintance 15 years ago, yet I did not meet you in person until last week. How is that?
I don't know. It's the way of the world, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I know,
it's great.
but here we are now. Heck, we're doing a podcast together. Who would have thought? But Todd, before we get into your program, tell us a little bit about your background in mortgage and real estate and how you started working with seniors.
I love it. Thank you, Dale. I really appreciate it. Yeah. So I've been doing this for about 23 years and followed in the footsteps of my father. His name is Pete Galde, and he actually got into mortgage banking in 1979, right before the Reagan era began and interest rates spiked to over 18%. So he cut his teeth when rates were 3-4 times what they are right today. And I grew up basically with my dad pre-underwriting applications on the dining room table. And so that was kind of, literally every day he was talking about home loans and whatnot. So it was kind of in my blood. And then I graduated from college and went off and did the .com thing for a couple of years. And then right around the 2000 era, you remember the .com bubble burst in a big way. And my dad said, hey, why don't you come join me? I'll train you. And so I did that, and I worked under him for a couple of years and then began to originate my own business. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, my father wasn't doing well. My mom wasn't doing well. Both of them have since passed, but they were in this transitional phase of life where we owned a big, beautiful home in Milpitas in the South Bay, and they needed to make this transition. And it was just incredibly difficult to try to sell their home first and then figure out where to go. And so out of that sprang this idea that there's got to be a better way to access this equity in homeowners who have been in their home for many, many years, right? They've paid down their mortgage diligently and they're sitting on literally millions of dollars of equity. And now they want to use it. They want to make a transition. And it was just nearly impossible to make it happen smoothly. And so I started networking with some investors who we created the Buy Before Sell program. I own buybeforesell.com.
Okay.
And I now have a handful of investors who we've perfected the art, if you will,
Yeah.
helping senior homeowners transition and basically turn the page on this new chapter in life.
Okay, got you. Now, in your experience, what's the biggest obstacle seniors face when trying to move into a continuing care retirement community or assisted living community?
The most obvious is the money, is the need for cash up front. You can break down CCRC, the acronym is Continuing Care Retirement Community, which you just referenced, and they can vary from super expensive, multi-million dollar, what we call buy-ins,
Right.
to $30,000 6 months upfront rent levels. Most seniors will have the $30, $40, $50,000 lying around. They won't have the 1.5 million lying around. Many CCRCs, many upscale high-end CCRCs require multiple seven-figure buy-ins before they'll even accept them to put in an offer, if you will. Yeah. So money, getting access to cash is the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, well, how often do you see seniors who are ready to move but stuck because they need the sale proceeds first?
Gosh. So I've done my statistics. I've done my door knocking, if you will, and interviewing seniors who fit this profile. And I would say 30 to 35% of seniors who are retirement age, they've been in their home for more than 10 to 15 years, they've got significant equity. About 30 or 35% want to make a transition. They like the idea. They've thought about it, but they don't know how to access the equity.
Yeah. Moving on, I did a past episode about CCRCs, but some people might be listening to this episode for the first time. So
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about understanding CCRCs and buy-ins. So for those who may not be familiar, can you explain what continuing care retirement community is CCRC is and how the buy-in process works?
Absolutely. I'm actually, if you forgive me, I'm going to go off my notes here just for a second because there's a progression of care with regards to CCRCs, and there's a level of what we call the continuum of care. And I'll use there's a good example in Pleasanton, Stone Creek, right off of 580, has a really well-defined continuum of care where you move in, say you're mid-60s, you're healthy, you're golfing, you might even be jogging, playing pickleball, and that level allows you and affords you to get a single-family home, right, or a condo. As you progress in age, your body begins breaking down. And so they actually move you to a separate section of the actual facility of the development, and you begin progressing over the course of 20, 25 years, all the way to senior skilled nursing and memory care. So it basically progresses from independent living to assisted living, and then skilled nursing or memory care would be the final phase. And the top CCRCs are ones that are all encompassing. You basically buy into the experience, and they take you from day one, literally, to death.
Yeah.
They basically, they hold your hand and they do everything for you.
Right.
That's the continuum of care progression of a CCRC.
Yeah. No, why are buy-ins or large upfront payments such a hurdle for so many families?
Yeah. First of all, the why is a really important question. You know, people are just shocked at how much it costs to buy into these high end. And they've actually done the research of how many years a person may live. They do a guesstimate, if you will, an analysis of the person. And they have calculated what the cost of healthcare is going to be for that person from the day they clock in to the day that they might die.
Yeah.
And so they basically say it's going to cost this many, literally millions of dollars to care for this person over the next 25 years. You're buying into that, and for them to cover that cost for that period of time.
Yep. Can you share an example of a family you worked with where the buy-in requirement was the biggest roadblock?
I would say in every case, the buy-in cost is the biggest roadblock. We're literally closing these every single month, but there's one down in San Jose that I got an urgent call at the last minute from an agent, the very, very successful agent down in San Jose, who was referred to me by another agent. And this family owned a home worth about $3.5 million, free and clear. Both the husband and the wife were in their early 70s, and they were both buying into a CCRC up here in the Tri-Valley. And the buy-in was close to $1.6 million.
Okay.
And they had So many of these families have retirement accounts, but their investments, their stock, their 401ks, they don't want to touch them for obvious reasons, but they know they've got millions in equity. And so they think that CCRC is going to give them time to sell their home, right? So that's an assumption that many of these homeowners are making when they begin the process of interviewing CCRCs.
Yep.
And so I'll never forget it. I got a call from the agent. And they say, Todd, I was just referred to you. Got a client who's buying into a CCRC at $1.6 million, and they've got $600,000 of their own money, but they're short $1 million. And they literally just left the CCRC in tears because the program manager, the sales rep, basically said, we're not going to wait for you to sell your house. You have 10 days to sign on the dotted line, and then another 20 days to get us the funds. And they literally were walking out in tears, and they were with their children, their grown-up children, who were helping them find the best place for mom and dad. And so I get a call from the agent, and I said, there's a couple questions that I asked. It's a very quick qualification process, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And within 5 minutes, I was able to talk. She patched me through to the family, and I was able to assure them that this is possible. We can make it work, and we can close on time. So you're not going to lose it. I have another good example of one down in Los Gatos. They needed about $750,000. They got a call. This is at the Los Gatos Terraces, and they got a call at the last minute. Hey, they've been on the wait list for over a year, and they finally get the call. Hey, you're off the wait list. And this was like on the 5th or 6th of the month, right? This was about 3 or 4 months ago. And they said, you're off the wait list. We've got your place. We're polishing it up. Can you come down today to sign the papers, right? This was on the 5th of the month. They needed to close by the 30th of the month.
Yeah.
They were leaving to go on a 2-week vacation to Germany. It was a cruise down the Rhine River in Germany. It was an unbelievable experience. So long story short, he was able to e-sign and docu-sign on his cell phone while on the cruise ship. And they came back from their vacation and we closed 3 days later. And I will say those examples, while they're dramatic, hair on fire, they're very common. Because people think that they're going to families visit the CCRCs, they fall in love with this development, and then they think, well, mom and dad's got $2.5 million of equity, we just need to sell the house. And then, of course, the program directors go, no.
Yeah.
We need to know we're going to close on this within a certain period of time. And they start scampering to try to get the house sold.
Let's now segue into the mechanics of how the buy before sell program works. Walk us through exactly how your program works for someone moving into a CCRC or assisted living.
You bet. So it's very simple. We take the equity in the home and we apply that to, in this case, the CCRC. And I know that's the primary topic of today's discussion, but the buy before sell works for homeowner who has a significant amount of equity. And basically, we just want to know that there is a total of roughly 65% of equity across, well, in the case, 65% from the departing residents.
Okay.
I'm about to say across both properties, but with the CCRC, there is no property, right? And so I have a very quick, there's 4 questions that I ask. First question is the home that they own, what the estimated value is. And once I have the address, I can look that up myself. Do they owe anything on that home? Generally speaking, if we're talking CCRC, the answer is no, we don't owe anything, or it's very little. The third question is, how much is the buy-in? Right. And if you're just kicking tires, how much do you think the buy-in will be? Right. And then the fourth question is, do you have additional funds that you've allocated? Or usually I'm speaking to the children. So do your parents have funds that they've set aside for the purpose of this, but they just don't have enough? Because many times they do. They've set aside $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. Or in the case of my client down in Los Gatos, the buy-in was actually $1.1 million, and he had $400,000 that he had set aside, but he needed another $700,000. And so those 4 questions, and if I get positive answers on all 4 of those, we're done. I've had times where I've actually spoken to the CCRC sales rep that day and shared with them. I've vetted them, originate this loan today. I will be able to close within the next 21 to 25 days. So those 4 questions I ask, and then as long as those are positive, we talk about fees and costs. And then as long as they're okay with all of that, then we go to the application phase. And it's very, very simple. I think one important factor, as we're kind of staying on this topic, is many homeowners may have already walked into their bank and said, Mr. Banker, we've been banking here for 30 years. We have 500,000 in our savings account, and we've got $2.5 million in equity in our home. We would like a loan to go buy into this CCRC. Well, the banker is going to say, okay, let's have a seat. What does your income look like? How do you earn money? We're retired. We've been retired for 10 years. We have Social Security, which is maybe 5,000 or 6,000 a month, and maybe some pension. It totals maybe 8,000 a month, whatever that might be. And you're talking about $1 million, $1 million, $2 buy-in. Well, there's no way that income is gonna carry that, right? And so the banker will basically say, well, you don't qualify, right, to do a cash out loan. And so I'm sorry, we won't be able to help you. So if they've done that due diligence, they have already been turned down. They know what that experience is like. We don't require any income. It's strictly driven by the equity in the home, and that's applied towards the CCRC. So that's kind of the holy grail of our program. Is there isn't a qualifying component from an income or debt to income's perspective, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Yeah. Qualification is not based on income. It's based on the asset, the value of the asset. So
Exactly.
Okay. And now, how is it different from traditional bridge loans or home equity loans?
Yep. So most bridge loans are going to require qualifying. In fact, I saw an email yesterday. One of our wholesale lenders had a big announcement. Their DTI requirement on their bridge loan went from 45 to 50. It was this big announcement. That still doesn't help homeowners that are trying to pull millions of equity from their home. The traditional HELOC or home equity line of credit or traditional bridge loan are going to require that debt to income ratio requirement. And the reason is because they're following to the letter a rule called the ATR, a QM rule. And ATR stands for ability to repay. QM stands for qualified mortgage. And that is a rule that rolled out in 2014. I won't get into all the details of that, but basically states to investors that are lending on behalf of owner-occupied primary residence, they have to prove the ability to repay the loan, right? The debt-to-income ratios. And when I say 45 to 50, what I'm talking about by 50 is half of their income can be the payment. And so that restricts a lot of people, right, from trying to get millions of equity from their home because their income is not tens of thousands of dollars. So there's a little clause, by the way, in the ATR QM rulebook that states the sale of the departing residence can be the ATR. And so we're willing to abide by that. And so that's where we still follow the rules, but we're not requiring any of the restrictive DTI requirements.
Right.
So that ATR rule is a really big factor in keeping people unable to do this. And we basically said, hey, we're still following the rules. We've got legal compliance involved, and nothing about what we do is illegal, and certainly not taking advantage of anybody. But there's a way to do it that doesn't require the qualifying component.
Well, along the same lines, do you need to prove to the lender then that either a listing agreement was signed then on that home, that departing residence, or does it need to be in contract?
Yeah, great question. Yep. So yes, so we do have to have, they have to have an agreement with the CCRC. We have to have that executed agreement to prove that these funds are going that direction. And in fact, in most cases, when we fund the loan, the funds are actually going straight to the escrow or straight to the CCRC. They're not going through the homeowner's bank account.
Right.
And that's one way that we prove we're not doing a cash out refi for the sake of this homeowner without qualifying them. These funds are going straight, their destination that can come down the road.
Good to know. Yeah, good to know. Now, how quickly can a senior access the funds they need to make their move?
Yeah. So with a primary residence, owner-occupied home, we have to follow TRID rules. TRID is a 10 or 15-year-old rule that requires that we follow timelines or waiting periods when loan docs are being sent out on a primary residence loan. And so what that means is when we send out initial loan estimate disclosures, and this is on any kind of refi or purchase of a primary residence, it doesn't apply to investment properties, but for a primary residence, there's waiting periods after certain stages of the loan. And so when you calculate all of those waiting periods together, the fastest any loan can close is 12 calendar days. So it's basically 10 business days and a weekend. Technically, you can close that fast. We don't like to promote that because that's too much hair on fire.
Yeah.
So I basically say 15 to 21 days is a comfortable closing for, any buy before sell transaction.
Okay. Related question: what makes this option especially well suited for seniors versus other buyers or sellers?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. And this is something that I really pride myself on caring for the client, if you will, and understanding the challenges that they're going through and emotionally. I actually own a company called Turning Page. And the reason I call it Turning Page is because what we're doing is helping them turn the page on this new chapter in life, right? And many of these clients they're transitioning or turning the page because of physical challenges, right? So many of them have, they own a big home that's got 2 stories, and so they're tired of walking up and down stairs. Well, it's important to honor that and to respect the fact that this is a great thing we're doing, helping them, downsize to a single story home where they won't have to deal with climbing up and down stairs. Or maybe it's to be closer to the grandkids. Well, there's an emotional component there, and helping people get to be with their grandchildren before they have to go through the hassle of selling. That's an emotional uplift. And being, recognizing that in the presentation of what I do is really important.
Yeah. Are there any qualifications or limitations families should be aware of?
Let's see. So one that came up recently is liens on properties that they didn't know about. And it didn't affect our transaction. It's just, it popped up when we ran the preliminary title report. And so we addressed it. But I would say if I'm the child of a parent we've decided this is the right thing for mom and dad to make this transition, to be, move to a retirement center where dad can play golf more or whatever. I think understanding the liens that are in place, and I think understanding the work that needs to be done to the home, because there is a chance that if they were able to sell their house before transitioning, and they had, it was polished to the nines,
Yeah.
right? Mom and dad took care of it. They spent $200,000 in upgrades, and so it's a house that's very desirable. There may be a chance that they could buy or they could sell right now and then transition, and that would avoid the cost of the bridge loan, right? And the buy before sell loan. That is maybe 1 in 20. The other 19 are homes they've been in the home for 20, 25 years. The carpet is still from 1989. And there's a lot of work that needs to go into those homes in order to get them sold quickly, in order for them to appeal to as many buyers as possible, right? And so I think that's probably equally as much as the lien issue. That's probably, if not more important, understanding what needs to be done to the home in order to get it sellable. Because we don't care necessarily, but I think if the family understands that, Dad, there's hours worth of work that let's get you to that CCRC, or let's get you to your destination, and then we'll take care of the work. How does that sound? That's a conversation they need to have.
Right. Agreed. One of the things I see families making rush decisions about downsizing when a big move is looming. How does your program change that dynamic?
I love this question. One of my favorite, if you will, the pitch of this solution is the first step. And when I meet with a client, I make house calls. I will go to this client's home, meet with the children and the parents around the kitchen table. We'll talk about the value of the home. We'll talk about how much they owe. We'll talk about where they want to go and for how much, and then whether there's any cash sitting on the sidelines. Within 5 minutes, I know whether or not they can buy before sell. And I love this moment, especially for those families that have been anguishing over this for months and months and months, how to make this transition. I'll pull out my laptop and go to Redfin, and I'll say, where have you been looking? And in what price range? And they already told me that, right? That was question number 3. And I'll say, you can do it right now. We could literally have you in contract tonight if you decided that you found the dream home in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, or wherever the grandkids are. And I'll tell you what, the anxiety, Dale, I'm not kidding you. I've been on Zoom calls. The mom started crying, weeping. And the husband would stick his head in the screen and say, Todd, I'm so sorry. We've been anguishing for months and months about how to get up to Seville to be closer to the grandkids. And you just solved it in 5 minutes. Right. And so this release of anxiety, angst is awesome. It's a great experience. I literally get chills just talking about it. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest emotional challenges is people have built up this reluctance, right? We've been turned down by 5 banks. We don't have enough income. We have to sell first. That's just the way it is, Mom. That's just the way it is, Dad. Get used to it. And I get to say, no, you don't have to do it that way. There's another way to do it. And just that release of emotion it's awesome to experience.
I love that. Do you have any favorite downsizing or home prep tips for families who now have more breathing room?
Tips? Yes. So the first that comes to mind, you want to align yourself with a realtor who's going to be more project manager than especially if the home needs work. And you want to align yourself with an agent who has a network of contractors, people that they are going to go to, right, to prep the home quickly. You want to and understand what it takes, right, to put $50,000 into a home without having to go home and go, oh crap, now what do I do, right? They have all these names in a Rolodex, and it's part of their listing presentation, right? So that would be my number one tip is align yourself with a realtor, like yourself, quite frankly.
I was about to say that. You just described me.
Exactly. Someone who, that's when I get so excited about being around you because you have this sphere of influence that's just intoxicating. It's incredible. And I know that if I refer a client to you, you're going to have a solution for whatever their need might be. That would be my number one thing to look out for is an agent that's going to represent them on so many levels because of the networks that they've built over the years. And then that also includes relationships outside of where they are. So if they're physically looking to sell, let's say in Danville, and move to Austin, Texas, well, it helps if you as their listing agent have contacts in Austin, Texas that you can refer them to, right? To help them buy, whether it's a single family home or into a CCRC. So I think the answer to the question is your sphere of influence, aligning yourself with someone who's got a really strong sphere of influence is probably the number one tip I would give them.
Excellent. Now let's segue on to case studies and real life examples. Can you walk through a success story where your program helped a senior transition smoothly into a CCRC?
Let's see. So there's a CCRC called Barena up in Santa Rosa, this is North Bay, and it has 7-figure buy-ins. Had a client in South Bay who was wanting to transition up there, and they actually had a long runway, and it was a good 60 to 65 days before Barena needed their funds. And so actually, Dale, this is an example of me not getting a deal. Okay. Because I basically said, you need to find an agent who's going to be able to prep your home with you in it, right? Let's take advantage of this window, right? Because you can get in contract. And then not only are they going to need to know people who can polish up their home, take care of your mom and dad, because they're in the home when it's being renovated, right? You don't want strangers walking through. So you need to know that those contractors are trusted, right?
Right.
If you've got your parents in the house and you're polishing it up, you're pre-listing it, right? It hasn't hit the market. You want to be working with an agent. If I'm the family of the seller, you want to be working with an agent who's got a huge network of agents, of pre-qualified, pre-approved buyers. I want to buy in that neighborhood. Because in this case, he actually found a buyer. It was an off-market sale, and he was able to close before that 65-day window. And so I didn't get the deal, but it was the best thing for that person, and they ended up transitioning smoothly. It worked out great. The other examples I would share are all very similar to the two that I shared in the very beginning. I don't get a lot of runway, right? People who say, yeah, we've got 90 days. They're all pretty much, oh, shoot, we have to close in 3 weeks, or we have to close in a month. And so, which I love. I say it's hair on fire. I used to have a beautiful head of hair, but it's all been burned off because I just love working in that high level of intensity.
Yeah.
But
Kind of a related question. What's the most dramatic difference you've seen in a home sale when the family didn't have to rush?
So up to about 6 to 12 months ago,
Okay.
you're obviously fully aware the market was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Between 2020 and 122, 23, multiple offers. And I know for a fact that when we have transitioned the homeowner out of the home and the agent was able to come in, spend 3 weeks, put $75,000 into it, the number of offers that came in on these homes was exponentially greater than it would have been. I jokingly say if Henry's underwear was hanging on the banister, right? If Dad's underwear was still hanging on the banister,
Yeah.
it's polished up real nice. It's
Right.
staged. And so, and you've got 24/7 access. You don't have to call to get us to schedule because it's tenant occupied. No, they're gone. And so I can call all my buyers and we can go at will. The number of buyers goes up exponentially. And so I've seen over asking sales of 200, 300,000. And you can attribute it to the fact that the house was vacant. It was properly staged. Now, today, it's interesting because many people will say, well, Todd, it's 2025. Things have slowed down dramatically, right? And I get a lot of people who say, submit a contingent offer, right? Because the market has changed. And that's true. You could absolutely submit a contingent offer and see what happens. But the irony of that is your house is still going to try to be sold with you in it. It's going to be just like everybody else's listing. And I tell people, don't you want to separate yourself from the other 7 listings in your neighborhood who all are tenant occupied? You get out of your house, you get Dale into your vacant home. He's going to polish it up real nice, put good contemporary furniture in there. And guess what? You're going to separate yourself from the other 6 listings and your house is going to sell faster than those others. So why don't you overcome that to think, well, it's a slow market. Take advantage of the fact that you could be the number 1 sale in that neighborhood by polishing up your house, right? So I think the buy before sell message works in a hot market and it works in a cool market for different reasons.
Solid advice. Now, some people hear buy before sell and think it's too good to be true. What do you say to those concerns?
Well, I think those are logical concerns because they haven't met me. Not jokingly, but I've been doing this long enough to know that there's a lot of bridge lenders out there that have a lot of restrictions. We don't have the same restrictions. And, I like to tear the Band-Aid off real quick. So if someone were to come to me and say, hey, Todd, I think it's too good to be true. Here are the details of our transaction. Well, if they don't have the equity and if it doesn't fit the profile for a good bridge loan, then I'm going to be honest with them and say, you're right. It's going to be true because it's not going to work for you. And so here is a possible other solution, right? And we'll work together to come up with the best solution for them. But there are people that, it is too good to be true because you just don't have the parameters. In most cases, people that come to you and I who say it's just too good to be true, those are not truths. And we can ideally create a great experience for them by proving that wrong.
Yeah. Hopefully we're getting the word out. It's about education, and hopefully this podcast episode does that. Yeah.
Amen.
Hey, are there any financial risks families should understand before deciding?
That's a great question. And yes, and we address those right up front. So there's a cost associated with the bridge loan. I don't generally like to talk about costs because everybody's different in terms of cost, but you could basically say it's going to be, 1.5% to 2%, give or take, of the loan amount, right? The borrowed amount. That's going to be the cost of the bridge financing, right? And now I am very proud of the fact that I am really good at helping them understand the value of that cost. And so if someone is talking about, wow, it's too expensive, I'll lay out those costs and then we'll compare that cost of them moving the house that their dream home that the seller wouldn't have accepted the contingent offer with, right? So they get the dream home and then Dale gets to come in, polish up their house, stage it properly and sell it for top dollar. Usually the house sells for more than the actual cost of the bridge loan. So if it costs 1.5% to 2.5% for the bridge loan, and they sell it for 3 to 4% more, well, they actually made money on it and they got their dream home, right? So understanding the costs is one thing to pay attention to. The other one, and this is really important in today's market, the truth is most homes are not selling as quickly as they did 6 to 12 months ago. Some are. Right? We still hear multiple offers over asking as if the house is in a prime location. It's important that they understand that they may have to carry this bridge loan payment for more than 2, 3, 4 months. If there's a concern with that, then we have options to defer that interest, right? Or I like to say they accrue it. You accrue the interest to the payoff after they sell their departing residence. So if they don't want to make payments, we could actually accrue all of that interest and they can pay it at the close of their sale. But that's the only real downside in today's market, the chance that it might take 2 or 3 or 4 months to sell. And so there is an interest cost for that.
That all makes sense to me. What's your advice for adult children trying to help their parents navigate a CCRC move?
Yeah. So I think the most important factor is making sure that they have vetted where mom and dad want to go, that they've sat down and you're very familiar with that. If you have a buyer, you're not just going to, it's a waste of your time to just take them to show them 50 houses on a Saturday. It's better for you to spend 30 or 45 minutes saying, what are your wants? Right? What are the 10 things that you really want in a house?
Right.
Oh, you know what? There's 12 houses that fit that criteria. So we're only going to look at those 12. And so I think that exercise is really helpful for the adult children to sit down with mom and dad and say, yes, that golf course is off the charts, Dad. What are the other features of that CCRC or that retirement community? Maybe there's something that you really don't like and you don't want to have buyer's remorse with this transition. And so let's get a list of everything you want and then let's go find and take the time to go find that. Unfortunately, and you and I had talked about this the other day, there are really, really good senior care advisors, right? And you have a network of them that can help people in this phase of their life do just that. They actually come alongside and say, let's build a want list, right? To make sure that the decision that you make is the best you could possibly make.
Right. Good point. Now, how early in the process should families reach out to you?
That's a good question. I tell people the day that they start talking about it. And so a good example, extended family comes to grandma and grandpa's house over Christmas or over Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And invariably, someone will bring up at the kitchen table or at the dining, in the nook, hey, when are you and Dad gonna get out, sell this thing and be closer to, Susie keeps talking about you and she misses you. And so they have that conversation. They start talking about, and I think if the adult child sensed, we were just talking about it the other day, the answer is right then. So
okay.
I think it's best to get the conversation going as soon as you can. The reason is, and again, I pride myself on the fact that if they've got solid answers to the first 3 questions, right? Value of their home, how much do they owe, and where do they want to go and for how much? If those are all positive answers, and we can basically say, Mr. Smith, you could actually transition to that retirement home, downsize to be closer to your kids and near Phoenix. You could actually do it right now. You don't have to worry about it. That removes his need to go find a solution, right? And to go to his bank and to be turned down multiple times and to have this experience of rejection over and over and over. If that adult child puts them in touch with someone like myself and someone like yourself who knows there's a solution, right, and they can immediately begin that really exciting step of finding the home. And like I said, pulling up the laptop, going to Zillow or Redfin or whatever your favorite website is, and looking in the Phoenix and surrounding area for that perfect $700,000 home. Right? And you take out all the negative, right? You take out the rejection from the bank, any of the frustration. I mean, I can't tell you how many stories I've had from people who said, we haven't slept at nights because we're thinking about everything we have to do to this house, right? And I say, well, I'm sorry. that that's the case. But I'm telling you right now, Dale's going to deal with all of those headaches. Let's get you out of this house and into your dream home. Let's get you throwing a baseball with little Billy as soon as you can. Oh, we'll deal with all the headaches of getting the house ready to sell. And I love that conversation. And again, I've seen it dozens and dozens of times, just the excitement and the enthusiasm that is generated from that.
Oh, how exciting. For senior living professionals listening, how can they introduce this option to prospective residents?
Yes. So I would, if I was an agent and I've got, my first comments are to the seasoned agents who've been in the business for 10, 15, 20 years. And hopefully they've kept good tally of their past clients, right? They've got a CRM. Maybe it's a Rolodex. Maybe it's a bunch of 3x5 cards.
Yeah.
But hopefully they've got a CRM that has their past clients that they've closed business with 5, 10, 15 years ago. That's the first thing I would do is reach out to all of them and reintroduce yourself to them and say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it's been so long since we've talked. I'm so sorry. Most agents aren't like you. Most agents are not doing follow-up very successfully. And so this is a good opportunity for them to revisit that relationship and say, listen, you're what we call an exceptional homeowner. We sold the house to 15 years ago. You've paid it down considerably. You've got a lot of equity. Have you and Bob been thinking about making a move? I'm just curious. Have you guys been talking about being closer to the grandkids or whatnot? And just let them talk, right?
Yeah.
Many of those homeowners, especially with all the equity that we've built up over the last 10 years, many of those homeowners, like I said, 35% of them, this is my boots on the ground statistical analysis, about 30 to 35% of homeowners that fit that profile are thinking about it. And so that'd be the first step for a seasoned agent. I would go right to my past clients. And quite frankly, I would go to my friends and neighbors. I mean, I would go to people who I know have family members who have been in their home for a really long time. And I would talk about buying before selling. And the other group of agents that I talk to a lot are newer agents that have just been in the business for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And they don't have this big book of business. They do have the ability to pull the data of homeowners who fit the criteria, the buy before sell criteria, which is primary residence, 60% of equity. They've been in their home for 10 or 15 years or more, and they're 55 and older. So those 4 criteria, you can pull all of those homeowners out of a farm, out of a neighborhood, and all of them have the ability to buy before selling. Knock on some doors, introduce yourself, and create a flyer that talks about the buy before sell message. We have all of this created for them. And that's a great way to give a soft message, an interesting message to a homeowner, especially if you're afraid of door knocking.
Right.
Yeah. Most agents are, hey, I'm your listing agent for the, and they're trying to separate themselves. And this is a great way to separate themselves from all the other agents.
I want to ask this question again, but part 2 of it is more so senior living professionals that are maybe the executive directors or in sales of the actual CCRC or assisted living community. How can they introduce this option to prospective residents?
Got it. So the ones that I'm working with now, so in most cases, I'm necessary when the need is there, right? And so they don't show up at 9 o'clock in the morning, get their coffee, sit down and think, how can I find a buy before sell, right?
Yeah.
So they're basically they're taking families on tours. They're returning calls of people who have expressed interest in an interview or wanting to see the project, the development, right? And so I basically say, here's a flyer, keep it close to your desk. I have at least a dozen of them that have a stack of 8.5 by 11 flyers in a drawer. And they, for the most part, they know that when they're meeting with the client after they've toured, or maybe in the beginning, some of them are vetting them up front. When they hear that, oh, my dad needs to sell his home. Oh, my mom and dad just need to sell their home, right? That's a trigger for them to go, okay, wait, tell me more about that, because we have a $900,000 buy-in, right? So they talk numbers, and they know that they've got a solution in the drawer of their desk. So that when they say, okay, you don't have $900,000 of cash? No, we're going to sell dad's home. Okay, let's get Todd involved as soon as possible so we can determine that we don't want to waste anybody's time. I've got 5 other people that are lined up wanting this unit, right?
Right.
And so let's get that out of the way. So that's the most important thing I can tell them, is to have that phrase top of mind, right? When the client or child of the client references selling mom and dad's home, that's when you say, we need to buy before sell. We need to call Dale, who knows how to do buy before sell. And then on the flip side of that, you and I both know they all forget. Everybody forgets. And so it's our responsibility to keep us top of mind by checking in at least monthly. But to answer your question, I would say listening for those trigger phrases.
Yeah.
Right. And then knowing, I have a solution for that.
Yeah. And last question, how can listeners connect with you and learn more about the Buy Before Sell program?
Yeah. The best way is my website, which is buybeforesell.com. Tons of information there. And then there's actually a form you can click on, and it has the 4 questions, and then it's got contact info. And then if they fill that out, I will get a text, and then I'll call within the hour to introduce myself, and then just gauge interest level, right?
Yep.
So buybeforesell.com is probably the best way. And then I like to tell people to Google me, Google Todd Galde, and there's, I think by now it's 124 5-star reviews. Read some of the reviews and get a sense of the experience that people have had with myself and my team, helping people, make this transition.
Excellent. Todd, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the clarity and solutions you brought to the conversation and what you're doing. The Buy Before Sell program is giving families the peace of mind they need during an already stressful time.
Yeah.
And that impact is invaluable. For those of you watching or listening, if your loved one is considering senior living and you need to figure out what to do with their home, even outside of Buy Before Sell program, let's talk. Schedule a free consultation with me by clicking on the Calendly link located in the video description box for this episode. You can learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. Have a quick question, DM me on Instagram at SoulByGale. And if you found this interview helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who might need it. Thanks for tuning in. Todd, thanks for being a guest today.
Thank you, Dale. Thanks, everyone.
You are welcome. And for the rest of you, I'll see you on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.